What would happen if Luffy were in Demon Slayer? Would Luffy become a Hashira? And more importantly, what would his breathing style be? Actually, would he even have one? You see, Luffy may not seem like the smartest, but he is definitely a genius when it comes to fighting. He developed several gears and techniques long before his Gomu Gomu no Mi awakened. So when it comes to combat, Luffy could easily surpass many of the Hashira with his unusual techniques. But since I know that just like me, you're really curious, let's see how Luffy with his real Akuma no Mi powers and Haki abilities would do against the Onis. But before I tell you, you need to show off your cultured side and smash that like button right now. To get this style, just subscribe to the channel, and legend has it that you'll get an Akuma no Mi if you turn on the notification bell. Alright, the Straw Hats were fighting against a powerful enemy they encountered while sailing the seas. And this enemy had in his crew a very powerful user of a mysterious Akuma no Mi. And this Akuma no Mi is capable of teleporting the user or their enemies to different dimensions. And here, Luffy was hit and ended up in the Demon Slayer universe. In the middle of the battle while Rengoku was fighting the powerful Oni, Luffy appears in front of Tanjiro and Inosuke, not understanding anything that had happened, while Rengoku was suffering at the hands of Akaza. And the same Oni says that it didn't matter how many Hashiras came to fight him, Akaza would crush them. And when Rengoku leaves an opening, Akaza runs toward Luffy to attack him, but he simply dodges with his advanced observation Haki, and using his Gomu Gomu no Bazooka, quickly sends Akaza flying away. Everyone is surprised because they think Luffy might be the Oni, and while they're distracted, Akaza comes back. At high speed, amplifying his Kekai Kekijutsu, he charges at Luffy with everything he's got. An epic battle takes place. Akaza gets irritated as they keep fighting because Akaza starts missing more attacks than he expected. Luffy, using Gear 2 with a series of blows, completely crushes Akaza. And as the sun rises, Akaza regenerates to escape. Rengoku tries to intercept him, but Akaza is even faster and dodges Rengoku to get away. However, Luffy stretches his arms and wraps them around Akaza. As the sun rises, Akaza disintegrates, giving victory to the Demon Slayers. Only thanks to the sun was Luffy able to defeat Akaza. But will it be different with the next demons? Tanjiro and the others are surprised that Luffy did not disintegrate, until Luffy explains his situation to them and says that he really isn't a demon. Tanjiro says that Muzan might be able to help him get back to Akaza. After all, there are many demons with various powers spread throughout the world. So, some demon might be able to help him for better or worse to return to his crew. So Luffy joins the Demon Slayers for a while, and Luffy, being Luffy, would think it's super cool to have the title of Demon Slayer. However, Luffy needs a sword to fight against the demons, and as we know, he's not very skilled with swords. So will this work out? When the Demon Slayers return from the Mugen Train mission, they immediately set out with Zui to investigate a possible upper-ranked demon in the entertainment district. And Luffy, even without his sword, decides to go along and help them. In the fight against Daki, Luffy finds her abilities very impressive, but not as impressive as his own. Even though Daki's sashes can cut through stone with Luffy's advanced Haki, he's able to protect himself very well and dodge her slashing attacks using observation Haki. Tanjiro takes advantage of the moment and decapitates her. That's when Gyutaro appears, causing trouble for the hunters. Then Tengen and Zui arrive, providing support to our hunters. Luffy sees how incredible the true ninja skills from Demon Slayer are. Now Luffy and the others realize that they need to cut off both demons' heads at the same time. This wouldn't be an easy task, but with Luffy's abilities, he would make it dozens of times easier than it was in the original storyline. You see, even though Gyutaro managed to poison the demons, with advanced armament Haki, the poison wouldn't even touch Luffy. That being the case, Luffy would activate his Gear 4 Snake Man. To stretch as much as possible and at insane speed, he strikes and grabs both demon siblings, wrapping himself around them again and restraining them. With the siblings together, Tanjiro and Zui move in to decapitate them. This happens easily, long before Tengen loses his arm and Tanjiro loses his sword. And here's a detail. Tanjiro wouldn't be in the condition to activate his Demon Slayer mark, so that wouldn't happen here. But I have good news. Tengen would remain in the Corps, since he didn't suffer any injuries that would make him stop and consider retirement. But now the question remains, will Tanjiro be able to awaken the Demon Slayer mark? Keep watching until the end to find out. Moving on to the Swordsmith village where Luffy would be looking for his sword, the village is attacked by Gyoku's demon fish. And Luffy, being Luffy, just couldn't sit still. While Haganazuka is preparing his sword, he's outside training his haki. Suddenly, the terrifying demon, Gyoko, the Upper Moon 5 appears. And this demon is a huge problem for Luffy. Since he's a devil fruit user, Luffy can't move in water or swim, so his weakness is nothing other than water itself. And Gyoko's basic techniques are all about water. So how would Luffy deal with that? The battle begins and Luffy proves to be much stronger than Gyoko. With his great speed, he dodges all of his attacks, but Gyoko plays dirty. He would attack the two blacksmiths who were there, but Luffy protects them. Gyoko is surprised and irritated that his spikes didn't pierce Luffy's body. Luffy says that only the strong can see the armor around his body. Gyoko gets irritated again and soon uses his technique of 10,000 slippery slime fish, and with Gear 2, Luffy uses his technique Gomu Gomu no Gatling gun, which is basically a barrage of punches against Gyoko's fish. But there's a surprise. Their blood is highly poisonous. That means Luffy's hands would be covered in highly corrosive poison. However, it doesn't help at all, because Luffy has extreme resistance to poisons, and as he goes after Gyoko, Luffy lets his guard down and is trapped in a water prison. And while he's drowning, Muichiro arrives, who had been thrown by Hantengu's pleasure clone. He quickly frees Luffy with his mist breathing, and now Gyoko has two extremely powerful opponents fighting against him. What will he do? Gyoko enters his hybrid Gatling form to become even faster, aiming to surpass Luffy's Gear 2, but he fails miserably. Because he doesn't just have to worry about Luffy's speed, but also with his observation haki, which allows Luffy to dodge all of his powerful attacks. In the end, Muichiro finds an opening to counterattack and decapitate Gyoko. With his defeat, Luffy grabs his sword and runs together with Muichiro towards Genya to defeat Hantengu. At that moment, Mitsuri would be fighting alone against the clones and Genya would be on the verge of death. After all, it was only thanks to Tanjiro that Zohakuten appeared, the clone of hatred, the fusion of the other clones. Luffy and Muichiro would soon arrive, defeating some of Hantengu's clones, forcing them to transform into Zohakuten. We should remember that in this situation, Mutir is very refreshed. After all, he didn't fully fight Kyoko, and now there are two Hashiras against Zohakuten. Seeing how tough the demon is, Luffy tells both hunters to run and decapitate the mini Rantengo while he deals with this bitter guy. Luffy simply activates his Gear 50 and toys with Zohakuten. He jumps between the wooden dragons as if they were a trampoline, and when he becomes giant, he uses the wooden dragons as a jump rope. And as Zohakuten runs out of space to counterattack, he launches powerful lightning bolts at Luffy, which doesn't help at all. Besides being tough, Luffy grabs the lightning bolts and throws them back at Zohakuten, defeating Oni easily. And as soon as the hunters find Rantengo, they behead him, saving the village and becoming the heroes at the end of the day. At this point, Muzan would be furious, wanting to finish off the hunters once and for all and wanting to get rid of Luffy, the one who defeats each of his upper moons. But most importantly, Muzan would see huge potential to turn Luffy into one of his most powerful demons. And with that goal, he goes to the Hunter's headquarters, taking everyone to the Infinity Castle. Right after Jitamayo injects his poison into Muzan, which would slow down his regeneration. And we should remember that the story has already been completely changed. Rengoku is alive. Tengen remains in the Hunter's course, and Tanjiro hasn't awakened his Slayer mark. So even though they have two powerhouses to help in the battles that will happen in the Infinity Castle, they won't have the Slayer mark, which will make the fight much more difficult, but let's see what the result will be. In the main hall, Oba Obanai and Michirin face Nakimi, while Duma faces Rengoku, Shinobu, Tomioka, and Tanjiro. More reinforcements would arrive soon after, which would be Kanao and Inosuke. In another room would be Luffy, Uzui, Gyomei, Multiru, Sanemi, and Genya, facing the powerful Upper Moon 1 Kokushibo. And in the middle of the battle, Luffy being Luffy, would punch Kokushibo in the hand holding the sword. In other words, he doesn't know how to use the sword since he's not used to it. And seeing how the Oni is surprisingly stronger than anyone else, Luffy uses his 5th gear once again. He shapes the pillars and walls of Infinity Castle however he wants, all to attack Kokushibo with more power. Kokushibo regenerates instantly but doesn't have time to counter Luffy's relentless attacks. And in his final form, Kokushibo goes all out, forgetting about the other Hashiras. So Gyomei takes advantage of the opening to decapitate the Oni, who finally meets his end. And now they head to the final battle against Muzan, the King of Demons. He notices that Luffy is happy even in this catastrophic situation, showing no fear or worry at all. Muzan questions Luffy and tells him he should join his army. But Luffy says he just wants to return to his crew and find the One Piece, which no one really knows what it actually is. Muzan quickly unleashes a series of attacks against Luffy, aiming to turn him into an Oni and change the course of the battle. However, with his advanced observation haki, Luffy dodges easily and counterattacks multiple times with unexpected moves, enraging Muzan with every hit as time goes by. Luffy toys with Muzan until sunrise, making it impossible for the Oni to escape, finally meeting his terrible and bitter end. Tanjiro feels sorry for Luffy and is sad that he can't help him. Luffy tells Tanjiro not to worry because he trusts his crew. And he adds that in the meantime, they should throw a party with a huge banquet to celebrate the defeat of the tyrant king of the Onis. Finally, a portal appears with his nakamas, saying that they finally caught the fugitive Akuma no Mi user, and Luffy goes back to his journey in search of the One Piece. What would happen if Zoro were in Demon Slayer? Would the greatest solo fighter be able to solo Muzan? Look, Zoro has abilities that no Hashira has, including tremendous physical strength. You can easily see that by the weight he carries while training. Definitely with his Santoryu style, he would solo many Oni. But what would Zoro's breathing style be in this Demon Slayer universe? Wait, would he have one and would he become a Hashira? Hold on a second. How did Zoro end up here? He got lost again. Come with me and I'll tell you how this story unfolds. But before I tell you, you need to use the written style of culture and leave a big like on the video right now. To have this style, just subscribe to the channel. And legend has it that if you become a channel member, you'll get an Akuma no Mi. Zoro's ability to adapt in battle is indescribable. He was able to learn how to cut steel while he was fighting, and after the time skip, just by swinging his katana, he's able to cut an entire ship in half. The guy is a beast. But with all this strength, is it possible that would he be able to defeat Muzan, a demon who can regenerate in milliseconds? Zoro has never faced an opponent like that, so would it be possible to defeat him, especially to defeat him alone? That's what we're going to find out, and we'll see what it would be like if Zoro were in Demon Slayer. With his real powers, that is, his haki and his original swords. Well then, the Straw Hats were fighting against a powerful enemy they encountered after the Wano War. They found him. Sailing to the next island, Egghead. And this enemy had under his command a very powerful Akuma no Mi user. And this Akuma no Mi is capable of teleporting the user or their enemies to different dimensions, just like Broly's fruit, which teleported her to the world of mirrors. And here Zoro was hit and fell into the universe of Demon Slayer. In the middle of the battle against the house, while Rengoku was fighting the powerful demon, Zoro appears in front of Tanjiro with them not understanding anything about what was happening. And Zoro, not understanding anything about that world or about who they were. Rengoku was suffering at the hands of Akaza. He said it didn't matter how many Hashiras came to fight him. As soon as he saw Zoro, Akaza said he would crush them completely. And during an opening in Rengoku's guard, Akaza runs towards Zoro to attack him. But he simply dodges and cuts off Akaza's arm as if it was nothing. Akaza congratulates him and says that he is very skilled for an ordinary human. However, Zoro realizes that Akaza is the typical bully and that in that world, he was one of the bad guys. Zoro uses his powerful haki and quickly destroys the house. The demon, not understanding what happened, regenerates and charges in with everything he's got at Zoro. However, with a single simple movement of just one sword, Zoro accidentally cuts the Oni quickly until the sun rises and burns the house, still alive. And could it be that the hunters have gained an important ally here? Roronoa Zoro, the one who could become the pillar of hell. Well, Zoro goes ahead and explains the situation to his new friends and says he doesn't care about their problems. He needs to get back to his crew. The hunters, not knowing how to help, say that maybe it might be possible to find a demon capable of taking Zoro home. After all, there are several unusual and unknown powers that reside in evil demons. They say that Muzan might be able to locate this demon, so Zoro joins the Hunters Corps to help them in their mission and to get back home. And here, my friends, a lot of insane things would happen. Because the level of the characters from One Piece is dozens of times ahead of the level of the strongest character from Demon Slayer. So how would the story go from this point? Zoro in the Entertainment District arc would be totally lost while the Demon Slayers fight against Daki until Daki is decapitated and then appears Gyutaro. At this point, Zoro would be about to arrive at the battle because, as we know, he would easily get lost. And upon spotting Gyutaro, without hesitation, he would immediately jump at the demon and he would behead him in an instant. And while Daki still hasn't been decapitated, Uzui goes to the Demon Slayer monster trio to help them, while Zoro holds Gyutaro's headless body, waiting for Daki to be decapitated. And in the end, the hunters defeat both demons. Too easy. Zoro could have taken down both demons if he wanted, but unfortunately, he doesn't cut women. And an important change. It happens here. Tanjiro doesn't unlock the Slayer mark, nor does he even break his sword. So, the hunters wouldn't go to the Swordsmith village if this happened in the original storyline. But since we're talking about an alternate timeline, Tanjiro says that Haganezuka would love to know how to make a sword capable of cutting through ships and entire mountains like Zoro's. Thinking about it, Zoro decides to help them and takes his swords to Haganezuka to study them alongside Tanjiro since it would help in the fight against the demons. And the stronger the demons are, defeated, the greater the chance the boss will show up to settle things. That's according to Zoro. When they get there, Haganezuka is impressed by the quality of Zoro's swords. However, we know that if anything happens to Zoro's swords, he'll kill Haganezuka without even hesitating. Haha. But suddenly, the village is invaded by the demon fish of Gyoko. And while Tanjiro is talking with Mutiru in the room and Zoro is there snoring, Hantengu appears and ends up being decapitated by Mutiru, causing his blood demon art to be activated and Hantengu's clones to appear. With all this commotion, Zoro wakes up and together with Mutiru is blown out of the room by Karaku's huge gust of wind. Pleasure clone. While Zoro and Mutiru try to return to the room, they run into Gyoko, who was harassing Haganezuka. And Zoro gets really pissed when he sees Gyoko trying to take his sword, which was in Haganezuka's hands. He tells Mutiru that he'll take care of this Oni while Zoro deals with Gyoko. Mutiru heads toward Tanjiro, and with the Hinokami Kagura, Tanjiro decapitates Hantengu's clones again, which causes Zohakuten to appear. Unfortunately, without the mark, Tanjiro wouldn't be able to behead Hantengu unless he awakened it right there. But Muzan wouldn't be able to handle Zohakuten alone, especially without a mark. So, how would Tanjiro be able to finish off Rantengo? Well, my dear Otaku friends, Mitsuri arrives to help in the battle. Now, there are two incredibly powerful Hashiras against Zoro Zohakuten. And back to Zoro, he only has two swords, but that's already enough to decapitate Gyoko. However, this Oni plays dirty. He threatens to kill the two blacksmiths who were there, and Zoro hesitates to attack in order to protect both villagers until Gyoko manages to trap Zoro in his water prison. Gyoko is arrogant. He would end up letting his guard down, thinking that Zoro was just another ordinary demon slayer who needed to breathe to perform his powerful moves. And as we know, Gyoko was. Totally wrong, because Zoro has already been able to annihilate a fishman underwater. Do you really think it would be any different here against a demon like Gyoko? Zoro, without even using Haki, he breaks free from Gyoko's water prison without the slightest effort. Gyoko would then end up using his hybrid fish transformation and charges at Zoro, missing all his attacks because Zoro has observation Haki and quick movements. Zoro takes advantage of an opening and decapitates Rantengo. Quickly, after getting his sword back from Haganezuka and running back to his new friends, he ends up wasting a lot of time because he gets lost very easily. Zoro being Zoro. By dawn, Tanjiro with his broken sword goes after Rantengu. He reaches Zoro, who throws the Wado Ichimonji to Tanjiro, who catches it. He then uses the Hinokami Kagura combined with the principle of thunder breathing to cut off Rantengu's head, thus awakening his hunter's sword. Back at the organization, Zoro starts to get impatient, but Ubuyashiki knows that Muzan will come after Nezuko. So he asks Zoro to help with the training to awaken the Hashira mark. Unfortunately, the laws of Demon Slayer do not apply to the laws of One Piece. Therefore, not only would Zoro not be able to awaken his own mark, he also wouldn't be able to teach the Hashiras how to awaken Haki abilities. Moving a little further in the story, after Muzan sends everyone to the Infinity Castle, a lot of things change because Rengoku is alive in this story. And while in the original timeline Tanjiro and Gyu would face Akaza, who is dead here, they would help the others in their battle. But what happens with Zoro? Well, my friends, it's to be expected that Zoro would get lost in this huge castle that is literally infinite. So while Muzan recovers from Tamayo's poison, Tanjiro, Muichiro, Sanemi, Genya and Gyomei fight in an epic battle against Kokushibo, the Upper Moon. And Shinobu, who is sent alone in the original storyline, now has the support of Gyu and Rengoku against Duma, Upper Rank 2. I must say that both battles are exciting with both of the Upper Moons giving their all in the fight. But there's a detail here. Kokushibo could still remember his past and give victory to the Demon Slayers, while with Duma, I believe that could never happen considering the great narcissist that he is. And as we know, Duma would need to devour Shinobu and have the effect of her poison in his stomach so that he could be decapitated without being able to regenerate his head. After all, both Upper Moons have this incredible ability to regeneration. And Duma wouldn't have time to take a break for a snack and devour Shinobu. He would first have to kill all the Hashiras, including Kanao and Inosuke, who would arrive at the moment of the all-out fight. So, what would be the outcome of this battle? Well, Duma fights against the powerful demon slayers who have awakened their marks, all of them, including Shinobu and Rengoku. That can help in the battle against Duma, but it won't be enough to kill him. After all, Duma is surprisingly stronger and faster than all of them together. Reinforcements arrive, Kanao and Inosuke join the battle, and Duma unleashes his most powerful technique, the Buddhist statues. And when it seemed like everything was lost, both statues are split in half. Then he appears from the crystallized dust created by Duma's ice. Roronoa Zoro. He asks if this guy is Muzan, since they were having a lot of trouble against someone so weak. Duma is obviously irritated and would go all out against Zoro, and an epic confrontation happens. Zoro keeps up with Duma's speed, easily cutting through all his freezing attacks and ice walls. Duma uses all his strength to amplify his Kekijutsu, creating even more powerful statues. Zoro would put an end to them using his Nitoryu style. With two swords, Zoro creates a powerful whirlwind that cuts through Duma's statues. Then Shinobu takes advantage of the moment of disbelief and Duma's irritability leaves him vulnerable, and Shinobu injects all the poison from her blade into him. Then Zoro ends the battle by cutting off his head. Meanwhile, in another room, while Tanjiro and the other Hashiras face Kokushibo, here, we've already suffered 3 irreplaceable losses, exactly 3. Here, Kokushibo would be fighting even more fiercely, because this is where all his hatred and resentment are put to the test. When he sees Tanjiro's Hinokami Kagura style, which is similar to his brother's swordsmanship, he turns against the boy with the Hanafuda earrings. With all his envy and bitterness toward Yoriichi, his brother, and you can probably imagine who the victims of this monster were. But before I tell you, drop a big like on the video. After all, you've made it this far. Do me this favor and comment which character you'd like to see next here in the Demon Slayer universe. Would like to see here in the universe of Demon Slayer. So, subscribe to the channel with the bell turned on. Look, Genya and Muichiro would be inevitable victims of Kokushibo. After all, they're not that powerful. And Tanjiro would be saved by none other than Sanemi, the one who hated him so much. Sanemi sacrificed himself because he believed that Tanjiro is the one destined to defeat Muzan. Because for someone like Kokushibo to get as irritated as he does with Tanjiro means that the kid has potential. And in an epic battle of Gyomei and Tanjiro against Kokushibo, the demon would end up taking his own life again because he would regret being turned into a monster. The battle against Nakime would have the same outcome, with her being decapitated by Obanai Mitsuri and Kaigaku being defeated by Zenitsu. Now, heading towards Muzan, who had plenty of time to stay in his cocoon and recover from Tamayo's poison, he would be very strong to deal with the Demon Slayers. In the midst of the battle against the Demon King, the Slayers are seriously injured, while Zoro remains unharmed, questioning Muzan if there is any ability that would allow him to return to his crew. While Muzan says he can't help him and tries to convince him to become a demon and join him on his throne, Zoro, being Zoro, has loyalty only to his captain, Monkey D. Luffy. Therefore, he would refuse and mock Muzan, who would quickly try to put an end to Zoro, who would be completely enraged seeing his new friends fallen on the ground and powerless. Zoro then uses his most powerful ability, Ashura, and cuts not only all of Muzan's tentacles but also all of his 7 hearts and 5 brains, putting an end to the tyrant Demon King. Fortunately, Muzan was no match for the King of Hell, Roronoa Zoro. But will Zoro be unable to return home? Wait a moment. A portal opens and none other than Luffy appears, jumping towards Zoro and hugging him. And of course, seeing all those people dressed up, Luffy would try to recruit them for his crew, but obviously they would refuse. Zoro then heads toward the Sunny with Luffy, who had spent months chasing after the mysterious enemy and his dimension fruit. In the end, everything turned out well, and our pirates continue their journey in search of the One Piece. And what if the Sunny was in Demon Slayer? Would our favorite cook be able to defeat Muzan, the king of demons? One thing we know, Sanji doesn't fight with his hands, so he wouldn't use a Nichirin sword. And we know how skilled Sanji is with his hands, so how would Sanji decapitate the demons and help the Slayers? And even though Sanji is strong, he still has a huge weakness, and that's women. So how would Sanji react to Mitsuri and deal with Daki, the other Upper Moon 5? After all, how did he end up in Demon Slayer? Look, the Straw Hats were going crazy, fighting against a powerful enemy after Wano, and Sanji was fighting against a pirate who had a dimensional fruit, who sends him to another universe, or rather, to the universe of Demon Slayer. And the question now is, when and where did Sanji end up? Before I answer you, drop your powerful ice-cold frit jump on that like button. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel with the bell turned on. That helps me a lot. And don't forget to become a culture member. I guarantee your benefits will be huge. Don't miss out on this amazing community. Thank you to all the channel members and all the subscribers who support my work. And when Rengoku was fighting against Akaza, the Upper Moon 3 Sanji appears next to Tanjiro and Inosuke, who were watching the battle. Both Akaza and Rengoku sense Sanji's presence, but in an opening that Rengoku gives, Akaza runs towards Sanji, saying that it doesn't matter how many Hashiras show up, he would finish them all. However, Sanji uses his Multum Shot attack. He comes back and kicks Akaza's head with all his strength. The kick was so powerful that the demon went flying. Everyone is impressed and Akaza gets excited because he realizes that Sanji is not an ordinary person and in fact, he could be a martial artist. Sanji has no idea what's going on or where he ended up. However, will Sanji be able to defeat Akaza and save Rengoku? Find out. Sanji didn't even use his haki against Akaza nor his Ifrit jump. So he didn't even come close to fighting seriously against Akaza. And as we know, Akaza has supersonic speed and Sanji is one of the fastest characters in One Piece. And without a doubt, he's on a light speed level. All of this is based on his feats in One Piece. So Akaza would still be far from catching up to Sanji even if he used all his power. But when Sanji looks at Rengoku, he thinks he was teleported back in time, but he doesn't recognize the lands around him since Rengoku was fighting with a cloak and a sword. While Akaza recovers, he amplifies his Kikijutsu and fiercely charges at Sanji, who fights on the same level as Akaza. When Akaza proves to be an extremely strong opponent, Sanji shows a bit more of the extent of his power, setting his legs on fire and using haki. Sanji, in a sequence of insane moves, breaks all of Akaza's defenses and finally strikes the Oni's head, tearing it off his neck. Everyone is stunned by what they just saw, but since Sanji didn't use a Nichiren blade, Akaza regenerates his head and laughs at Sanji, mocking our cook. Meanwhile, Sanji is surprised by what he saw and Rengoku warns Sanji not to let his guard down since the Oni are treacherous. Since Sanji lacks the Nichiren blade, Rengoku joins to help him fight Akaza. As dawn breaks, Akaza tries to flee but Sanji stops him with a powerful kick that sends the house flying, exposing Akaza to sunlight, killing the Oni and saving Rengoku. Finally, Rengoku tries to gather information about Sanji, who talks about the devil fruits and races beyond what the hunters know. Because of this, Rengoku says that Master Kagaya could help him understand more about it. And before the meeting with Kagaya, we should be aware that two things happen. First, Rengoku was saved. Now he can help the Hunter's Corps in future missions. And Akaza, the Upper Moon 3 Muzan's favorite, died at the hands of Sanji. In other words, two major changes have happened. And when Kagaya explains to Sanji that for him to return home, or rather to his crew, he must first find Muzan, the king of the demons, who knows about every demon that exists and possesses unique powers. So, some of them would certainly be able to help him. And joining the Hunter's Corps, while Uzui was taking Shinobu's girls to the entertainment district, Sanji kicks him, because that's not how a man should treat a woman. Age doesn't matter, and my friends certainly here, a huge mess would start. Uzui would try to fight Sanji and that's it. He would try because Sanji would surpass Uzui's abilities as a slayer until they are stopped by Tanjiro and the others. When Sanji and Zenitsu find out that Uzui has 3 wives, they go after the Sound Hashira. In the entertainment district, Sanji instantly falls for everyone he meets. However, he would still have to dress as a woman like the others. And about that, it's nothing new for Sanji. When Tanjiro meets Daki and they have a fierce battle, Sanji arrives to save Tanjiro. However, something unexpected happens. Sanji falls in love with the Oni. And as we know, Daki would reject Sanji in every possible way, crushing his poor little heart. And faced with Daki's intense attacks against the Slayers, Sanji just dodges while carrying Tanjiro, until he has no choice left but to start shouting for Nezuko-chan, who arrives promptly to help them. And when Uzui finally arrives to decapitate the Oni, he would once again argue with the cook, who this time quickly saves him from a surprise attack by Gyutaro, the real Upper Moon 5. While Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu fight against Daki, Sanji and Uzui fight against Gyutaro. After Sanji obliterates Gyutaro with hundreds of kicks, Uzui cuts off the Oni's head. Meanwhile, Inosuke takes advantage of an opening created by the Slayers to saw through Daki's neck, thus defeating the Upper Moon 5. And notice that once again, two changes happened. Uzui suffered only minor injuries and therefore wouldn't lose his arm, much less decide to leave the Demon Slayer Corps. And Tanjiro didn't awaken his Slayer mark against Gyutaro. He didn't even damage his sword to go to the Swordsmith village, so this would really mess things up in the original timeline. However, Sanji is here, so will he be able to completely change the course of the story? Look, Uzui tells Sanji that he's strong, but his inability to fight against women, in this case female demons, makes him weak. But what truly makes him weak in this world is not using his hands to wield a Nichiren sword and have the chance to defeat the demons. However, he says that to solve this problem with the ability Sanji has, he should go to the Swordsmith village to make Nichiren shoes. That's exactly what you heard. Shoes made from the same material used to make a Nichiren sword. With Sanji going to the Swordsmith village alone, he meets Mitsuri, who immediately jumps on him, causing him to lose a lot of blood and literally faint. Seriously, this guy is a total simp at the highest level. There's no way around it. When he wakes up, Mitsuru is in his room because Mitsuri asked him to take care of his fellow hunter as she was leaving the village to embark on a new mission. When Mitsuru in his own way teases Sanji, Rantango appears, who is decapitated by the Mist Hashira, Muichiro Tokito. With that, Rantango's blood demon art is activated, and now with the Oni's clones appearing, Sanji goes after Orogi the Joy clone, who sends him flying through the air. However, as we know, that doesn't work against Sanji because he returns to the room with his skywalk technique. This technique allows Sanji to walk through the air as if he could fly. This surprises everyone, especially the demons, who can't believe Sanji is human. When the anger clone unleashes its powerful lightning bolts at Sanji, he manages to dodge them at an incredible speed, and in a sequence of insane moves, Sanji, using his Parar de Chuto technique, with several kicks in a row, defeats all the demons. Even using the Jihaki, he breaks the Sadness clone's spear with a kick. And notice that the original clone of Rantango was running away, so Sanji and Muichiro run after the Oni to decapitate him until Zohakuten appears, the fusion of all the defeated clones. With powerful wooden dragons, Zohakuten interrupts the hunter's pursuit of the original clone. Sanji, once again walking through the skies, dodges and strikes all of Zohakuten's wooden dragons, setting them on fire with his Diablo Jambe, giving the perfect opening for Multiru to decapitate. However, as he gets close to the Oni's neck, Multiru is caught by surprise by powerful sonic screams, and right after, by a powerful gust of wind, which sends him flying through the air. Now Sanji needs to deal with this Oni, but he still has to go after the original clone of Rantango, and even then he wouldn't be able to decapitate or defeat the Oni because he would be without his Nichiren shoes. However, Mitsuri arrives to help him. And once again, Sanji is dazzled by her beauty, focusing on taking care of Zohakuten while Mitsuri hunts down and restrains the original clone of Rantango. The hunters manage to come out victorious against Upper Moon 4. And on the other side, Multiru is having trouble dealing with Gyoko. Upper Moon 5, you see, even though he was able to defeat Gyoko alone in the original story, he won't be able to defeat him here, because he doesn't have the Slayer mark. After all, Tanjiro hasn't awakened it yet and hasn't met Multiru. And at a crucial moment, Multiru runs out of breath and is about to die in Gyoku's water prison. That's when Mitri and Sanji arrive to help him. And as soon as Sanji puts on his new shoe sole coated with Nichiren, he's ready to defeat Gyoku, who was being held back by the Love Hashira, Mitri, and the Mist Hashira, Multiru Tokito. Seeing that now Gyoku would have to deal with two extremely powerful Hashiras, he transforms, entering his hybrid fish form. However, despite his enormous speed, Sanji still easily surpasses him. After all, this Oni is just a pushover compared to the group and was easily defeated by Sanji. Then he uses his anti-manner kick course technique, which is one of Sanji's most powerful kicks. He spins vertically at a 180-degree angle and with a powerful kick crushes Gyoku's head, bringing a crushing victory to the hunters. Muzan becomes extremely irritated with the loss of his upper ranks, all because of an unknown person. So without hesitation, Muzan is willing to end it right there. The Slayer Corps is immediately attacked by the King of Demons, who meets with Kaguya and takes everyone to the Infinity Castle. Here, everyone faces their respective opponents. And the question that remains now is, without the Slayer mark, could the Hunters survive any fight, especially against Muzan? Actually, the main question here is whether they could survive against the upper ranks. But with Rengoku and Uzui still in the Slayer Corps, they would have a great chance, especially since Tanjiro and Giyu would help in the other fights. After all, Akaza would be dead, so they wouldn't have to deal with him. Okay, we understand this point. But in which fight would Sanji participate? Before I tell you, I want you to leave your powerful Ifrit jump on the like button. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, do it right now. That way you won't miss the new videos I post. I guarantee you'll like it. Moving on to the Infinity Castle, Shinobu, Rengoku, and Tomioka face Duma, the Upper Moon 2. Meanwhile, Tanjiro, Sanemi, Gyomei, Genya, Muchiru, and Uzui fight against Kokushibo, the Upper Moon 1. Okay, but where's Sanji? Well, unfortunately for everyone, he ended up facing Nakime, the substitute Upper Moon 4. As we know, Sanji doesn't fight women no matter what, so he would keep dodging her powerful attacks until help arrived, and when they do, Sanji can finally focus on going after Muzan. With that, Mitsuru and Obanai now deal with Nakime, the substitute Upper Moon 4, and while traversing the Infinity Castle, Sanji becomes enraged when he sees Shinobu being struck with full force by Duma. He gets so angry that he loses his head, mainly because he hates seeing a woman being mistreated. Without any mercy toward Duma, Sanji sets his legs on fire and uses his powerful Jabra Jamba, Flambe Flambid Shoto. The heat from this type of attack is so intense that when it makes contact, even for just a second, it can set a person on fire. So as Sanji walks toward Duma, Upper Moon 2 uses his technique Ice Buddhist Statues, but in the blink of an eye, Sanji breaks through the statue with a powerful kick, melting completely all the places that had been frozen by Duma. And before Duma can even react, Sanji, using his technique Frite a Sorte with a powerful kick, completely crushes Duma, but the Oni regenerates his head, which still surprises everyone. However, thanks to the opening created by Sanji, Shinobu manages to inject a powerful poison into the Oni, which will kill him in a few minutes. But, my friends, do you think that's enough to stop Sanji's rage? Definitely not! With powerful kicks, Sanji totally smashes Duma, my friends, and in Upper Moon 2, unfortunately, Shinobu is extremely injured and won't be able to accompany the hunters. However, she still survives, and as the hunters search for Muzan in the Infinity Castle, Sanji comes across the fight against Kokushibo, the Upper Moon 1. At this point, Muchil and Gane are still alive thanks to Zu and Tanjiro, who join the hunter's side. With powerful kicks, he is able to surprise Kokushibo. But as Kokushibo attacks Sanji, none of his attacks can even get close to Sanji because our cook has powerful observation haki, and using his Diablo Jambe, Pule Afri, Sanji proves to be so powerful that he breaks Kokushibo's sword with his armament haki and flaming legs. This makes the Oni enter his final form, where he becomes a true monster. But when Sanji uses his most powerful attacks in Diablo Jambe mode, he flies up into the sky and using his attack with the Kase, Sanji puts an end to Kokushibo, crushing the demon with a powerful kick. When the hunters reach Muzan, the king of the demons, an epic battle begins, with Sanji becoming untouchable against the whips that Muzan uses to attack the hunters. His haki allows him to dodge everything, and his Diablo Jambe technique lets Sanji burn his tentacles easily. This helps the hunters a lot to get an opening against the king of the demons. However, it's still not enough to defeat Muzan, and even though Muzan wants to turn Sanji into a demon, to use him as a tool for his army, Muzan is afraid because he can't even touch Sanji. And Muzan tells Sanji that he can't help him. And with no more hope of returning to his crew, Sanji then uses his most powerful attack so far. That's right, He was holding back in all his battles, even against the king of the demons. Sanji ignites blue flames on his leg, and when he finds an opening against Muzan, using an insane sequence of attacks, he puts an end to Muzan with his buffet burst technique, completely burning the demon and disintegrating each of his hearts and brains. Finally, to celebrate the defeat of the king of the demons, Sanji prepares a huge feast for everyone. And he gets even happier when he sees that Mitsuri just can't get enough of Sanji's food, making even Obanai jealous. But at the end of the feast, they finally show up, the Straw Hats, who managed to capture the fugitive enemy with the dimensional fruit, and now Sanji can finally go back home. Comment below, Otaku, what did you think about this? And who do you think will be the next character to enter the world of Demon Slayer? Like, subscribe to the channel with the bell turned on, and watch this video I picked out for you. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. It's a really special video. See you there, Otaku!